Hey everybody, welcome to the Chaotic Night Network, KNN. Sorry for a little bit of a late start here. We had a few technical difficulties, but we are here and we are live to bring you some news in the world of gaming this week.
Yeah, I guess we got the contrast paints. Well, I guess we'll start with that because we've been doing that for 3 weeks, 2 weeks in a row now. Now it'll be 3 weeks. Why don't you start? So I just won't be as salty.
So I got a chance to play with the new contrast paints. I like them. They're pretty much exactly what I thought they were going to be, and I've been painting like crazy. I've been working on scenery projects. I've been working on a Stormcast army. I've been working on a Seraphin Army. I've been working on Space Marines. I have ideas for AOS Orcs, or Oryx, sorry, Iron Jaws. Um, and the Caradron Overlords too. I have one of those armies. I've just been like just kind of going nuts with them, and it's really given me a neat tool. I've watched models that used to take me an hour or more to paint, of painting time on the model, go down to 20 or 30 minutes. So for me, I think it's a really good tool to have. We'll get some photos up soon of some of the models I've been working on. Some good quality photos, not really bad cell phone photos that I've been taking with them, and kind of show off the effects. But I think they're solid. Um, I know one of the comments has been we've been discussing, debating a lot is it going to bring new painters into the hobby? I think it will. I think I'm not going to say it's going to convert 100% of the people who didn't paint before, but I think a percentage of the people, maybe 20, 25%, it might bring in, because I think a lot of people's objections to painting like that is that it's too much work. It's I'm not good at it, and these kind of are skill in a bottle, which we can go a little more into. But let's get your first impressions before I dig into that can of
Skill
worms.
in a. So I think they're awesome. I think they're great. But not, I think, for the reasons that they were portrayed to be great.
Okay.
They're not the miracle paint, at least in my opinion, that is going to change the face of painting. I think it's another great tool. We've kind of said those things. I don't think it's going to be that thing that brings a whole bunch of people painting to the painting table and suddenly we're going to see a bunch of painted miniatures. I guess my thing with it is this. And we've had this conversation and we said we'd offend a bunch of people if I said this, but I guess that's what
I think
the
we should
show's
say it
supposed
anyway.
to do.
Yeah.
I think that the lack of painting stems a great deal more from just flat out laziness, or we're too busy. I mean, you could call it one of those things. I know Chaos has said, hey, people feel bad because their models don't look as good as somebody else's models, and I think that probably plays a smaller role than maybe we would say. But I think it's the lazy, we're too busy, it's just not a priority. I'd rather get my models built and then on the table to play. And I don't think the paint does that to the extent where I'm just avoiding the laziness. I still have to prime the model. And take note for a second, when we watch Games Workshop videos and they come out with 50 Shades of Gray, it's not 50 Shades of Black or 50 Shades of white or 50 Shades of single color primer,
Right.
insert that here. It's 50 Shades of Gray. They're not even spray painting the dumb things. I mean, seriously. And so for me, it's like, well, I still got to do that, and then I got to slap on a coat of paint, and it's still just one color if I do that. It's got some shading and some depth, but I just don't see it being that particular tool to.
See, I think I approach it from a different level of the people who I don't. The reason people aren't painting, it's kind of just, and it's this. I mean, we can dig into like psychology.
Sure. And that's where we're at now. We're outside of gaming.
And
dangerous.
But I think that is a thing though. Is like is it's a psychological thing. If you're not good at something, you're less likely to want to do it. And if people don't want to put the time into learning the skill of painting, this is a shortcut to that. I think you can have somebody who at one point in their lives, they took a model, they got home, they spent some money on primer and paints, they primed the model, they slapped a coat of paint on the model, and they went, this looks like garbage. Why does this not look like it looks like at the game store when people paint models there? They put it on a shelf. 3 years later, they've lost their primer can, their paints have all dried up, and they never do anything with it again. And I think these paints are, you take it home, you prime the model, you put a coat on, and you're like, wow, that doesn't look half bad. I'm not saying it's perfect. It's not going to go win a painting award, but it shades the model. I mean, it's your base coat, your shade, and a little bit of highlight all in one coat. With very little skill required.
I'll say this. So I've done some example models, some testing, if you will.
Yep.
Because I've portrayed for the last 2 weeks about we already have these tools in our arsenal,
Right.
and here's it. So I did this. I actually used a tree revenant, and I should bring them in, except I think I rebased the one that I didn't like. But so I ran a tree revenant, and I did just the skin tone on him. Wildwood on bark, by the way, phenomenal. Blows everything else out of the water. But again, to me, it's just another color. And it's better than dryad bark or Rhinox hide or whatever you may be using for your trees. Anyway, that was a side note. But I used a variety of purples, so I did the shade because that was what I've been saying. We have shades. Why do we need contrast paints? I did the shade. I did Shaiish purple contrast paint. I did the Magos purple contrast paint. I stuck with the purples. It's my favorite color. The Shaiish purple was extremely dark.
Yep.
It brought out the detail in that they have, if you don't know Sylvaneth tree revenants, they have
these swirls and spirals.
Yeah, swirls and spirals carved into their arms, and it brought those out really well. It was harder to see in the Shaiish purple. The Magos purple was phenomenal on that. You could it really defined the arm, the musculature, those runes, if you will, in the arm. Didn't like the color. I'll leave that at that. But it did, I think, what it should have been done with the job. And then I did the Druchii Violet wash, which was my favorite when I was all said and done. And it did a lot of those same things. It brought out those details, and it did that stuff. And it wasn't as dark as the Shaiish. It wasn't as light as the Magos, but it did kind of the job. So for me on that end, the contrast colors brought more color options to the table.
They are richer,
they're more
vibrant.
They're more pigmented, I believe.
Yes.
I'm not a color guy, so you'd have to answer that one.
But the colors are richer, they're more vibrant, I've noticed that.
Which I like on a lot of applications, but sometimes I don't want that. But anyway.
So I've been messing around with painting models too, because that's what I do.
Yeah,
too.
you've painted a lot more, I think, in the last few days.
I did a couple different techniques because I really wanted once again, I know they're aimed at new painters. I think they're a great tool in the belt of
We're going to come back to that because, anyway, go ahead.
And well, we're going to see. We have, I mean, at our local game store, we have a lot of people who have come through and bought these paints, and they're starting to try. So in another week, we'll get feedback from these guys and see what it looks like. But like I've been doing like zenithal out of a rattle can, not even using an airbrush, but like primal model black, but from a straight above down to about a 45 to 30 degree angle with a rattle can of Wraithbone or Grey Seer, trying out the new primer so that when you're done, you have a model that from the top is completely that off-white, all the way down to the bottom is now completely black if you're looking up, and creating that zenithal shading. And then I've been throwing the contrast paints on that, and the result is amazing. Yeah. And one of the things the contrast paint does really, really well, and I think new painters will benefit from this too, is because of when it dries, it's already kind of leaving some natural highlights for you, and it's like a guideline of where you're going to put your edge highlights. And so for me, like I'm using Stormcast using the Blood Angel Red. Well, it leaves those nice defined edges, and so I just take Troll Slayer Orange and run my edge along those already defined edges and color them with the color I want, and then I go back and I spot it with Luganoth Orange a couple times, and boom, I have this Stormcast armor that's like this perfect Blood Angel Red. And those highlights, because I am a skilled painter at least, like I have good brush control, I can hit an area without getting it all over the place. On a Stormcast model, doing those edge highlights and spot highlights together is maybe 3 minutes painting for me.
Right.
To do all the armor, and that's really fast, you know. And so it's like, yeah, I find myself like wanting to paint more armies because I'm painting faster. I am personally painting faster because of these.
I think there's no doubt that you paint faster. And I think I said maybe some of that wouldn't really help, but in most applications, I think you paint faster. I've used it in some places where it's not increasing my paint time, or it's not decreasing my paint time. It just gave me a tool that I actually like better than any of the other tools that we had in the arsenal before.
And so I'm doing Seraphin too right now.
Okay. Oh yeah, you're Seraphin. We should have put that on camera.
We need to get some pictures of those.
Yeah.
So my Seraphin are a little different. So I had I get ideas about painting, and I try to go to sleep, and I can't, and my brain's just working on it. And I was thinking about my Seraphin Army because it's an army I really, really love. But one of the things that was really important in painting that army is to make sure that all the scales are really well defined on the skinks. Because I'm doing an all skink Seraphin Army. And so the idea I came up with is I primed the models black. I called Danek up on Sunday night late. And I was just like, dude, this is working. You wouldn't believe this. So I built 2 Seraphin models that day, primed them that night, and I usually am one of those guys like prime them and let them wait. And no, that night I got them out. I dry brushed or overbrushed the model. So overbrushing is basically dry brushing, but a little thicker. I overbrushed the models with Wraithbone, so that when I was done, the model was basically Wraithbone in color, but it was a little bit of zenithal going on because I wasn't getting underneath the chest areas and stuff as much. But every single scale, because it was prime black, had a perfect little black outline around it still, which really defined the scales. And then I took the, I think it's called Gryph-hound Orange, and put over all the scales and the kind of inside of the fin on the back of the head. And then I used Warp Lightning Green on the rest of the model, like on the rest of the body of the skink, and then let it dry. 30 minutes to dry. So I put those down. I worked on some other projects, doing some scenery and stuff for the battle report we're doing this Saturday. And I got that done and went back to them. They were dry. And I was like, the orange isn't as much orange as I wanted still. And so I did take Fugan Orange, the shade, and I put a shade coat of that over the orange. And then I took Moot Green and just went over the highlights on the skin. The skin was done. I'm done at that point. That skin used to take me 5 coats to do. Like base, shade, rebase, layer up first highlight, second highlight. And I did that in 2 coats base. I mean, if you count the overbrushing the whole model, it would be 3 coats, I guess, but I'm still cutting two layers out. Went back, finished the scales, did the blowguns. Messing with metallics, by the way, with contrast, that's a whole other conversation. The contrast work really, really well over metallics, and you get some really fun effects.
You get some great effects. I mean, they've caused me to completely redo my Dark Angels, which is fine. But now I literally had 5 models, I think, done in a 2,000-point army. And when we got them in the store here locally, we got them all out. And I think there was a guy, one of our production team members actually, who had a Grey Knights army that was all lead Belcher base coated already.
Plate mail primer from Army Painter.
Oh, plate mail primer, sorry. We don't, yeah, probably, it was silver. And we basically just ran as many colors as we,
different models.
One of our customers came in, bought a bunch of colors and said, hey, put it on this, put it on this. And so we ran a whole bunch over the silver, and one of them was the Dark Angels green. And when that thing came out, and I was like, oh man, I went home and I rebased all of my stuff with the lead Belcher.
All you gotta do too is take Rune Fang or Necron Compound if you want to use the dry paints. I dry brush with layer paints because I'm an old school painter. I never really got into the dries as much. But if you just did a really light dry brush over that, just to give the kind of it would make it look like this really just gorgeous metallic Dark Angels green.
Anyway, I'm gonna redo my whole army. So I have 5 models now done again, though, so that's not something to say because it's fast. It was fast.
Yeah.
I mean, and it does speed up certain applications, and so again, I'm not gonna say I eat all of my words because I think a lot of our complaints was just the price tag they put on. We're gonna get into that, I think, after this. But the contrast paints themselves, as we just focus fire the contrast, which is what came out. I like them. I think they're a great application. They're
fantastic.
Get a thumbs up. They get a B+, A- in my book. So
I'll say this. So, and I won't dig too deep in the painting theory and stuff here, painting application. But so dry brushing is a technique some painters really like, some painters really don't. It can get really grainy looking if you dry brush too much. And the reason is when you're applying paint onto a model. I mean, if you look at like at a real close-up level, I mean, a paintbrush has all these bristles with paint on it. You rub the paint on the model, and it leaves areas in between the bristles that are a little thicker than the areas where the bristles are actually laying the paint on. And when it dries, you end up with these microscopic ridges on your model. Does that make sense? Right. And then when you dry brush over that, because dry brushing is always picking up the most raised areas, as you build that up more and more, it gets more and more grainy looking as you're catching all that. The contrast paints are so thin that if you are just airbrushing or rattle canning the model to begin with, there's no brush strokes. And then you put the contrast paint on there, and they're so thin that when they dry, there's still no brush strokes. So the first time you dry brush, you have none of those brush strokes you're worried about, and so the first dry brush coat looks like edge highlighting. It's so clean.
Makes it better.
And if you're good at dry brushing, and you're using the contrast paints in that light, I'll tell you, it is an amazing effect. And we saw it on one of the models that they had done, that our production guy had done up, and he put it was the turquoise, I think, over steel, which is gorgeous, very Alpha Legion-esque kind of look to it. And I grabbed Gray Knight Steel, the new color, and I quickly just dry brushed it over that, and it looked really good. It was like tabletop ready model, like paint the sword, you're good to go. And
but again, I get back to what they've really provided. It is kind of another line or some extra colors of paint. Yeah, they can make your army painting go quicker. I think we're going to see more use on the end of like you and even me at this point, where it's another pigment I can use, it's another color I can use, it's another quite different technique, even though I would say even a little bit than some of the shades, where you have another tool to make your army better. And some of the stuff that they come out with is just really cool. And let's transition into that. We talked about contrast paints, and that's what everybody's talking about for weeks, and everybody's talking about it. It's like the biggest thing that, you know, GW drops a bombshell in this contrast paints, but we don't talk about
everything
you
else.
You said the Gray Knight Steel. What an awesome color, and that's just a base paint. And
yeah, new base colors.
But there's a bunch of new colors.
Iron Warriors, Iron Hands. I mean, there's a bunch of new metallics. There's a new bronze that came out. My personal favorite, if not Gray Knight Steel, is the new yellow, Phalanx Yellow, that came out in the layer paints. Amazing colors. It's a cool yellow. And once again, I'm sorry if I nerd out on art stuff, but like most of Games Workshop yellows to date, with the exception of maybe Dorn Yellow, have all been warm yellows. They've been warm colors. And this is like a true cool yellow. And it's really cool. I've been using it on the eyes of my skinks.
Yeah, I use it on the eyes of my Deepkin.
Yeah.
Just the Thralls.
It's a great...
Just the Thralls.
But Thralls don't have eyes.
Ooh, well, mine do, so they're fired.
But yeah, there's a bunch of new colors that have come out. A bunch of them, I believe, are Forge World only colors, and then
yeah, they must have come from somewhere. But I think those got ignored, and I think there was a lot to say about that. I think there is a lot to say about that line. A lot of our gamer community were kind of geeking out over. Gray Knight Steel was the biggest one, I think, that we heard. I know Chaos likes the yellow, which I also really like. But the Gray Knight Steel, but there was a bunch of colors. It wasn't just a few. There was, I think, upwards of 20 new colors, something like that.
Word Bearers Red. I mean, you know, all these things that were really specific, and I think were really geared towards the Heresy era colors as well.
Is that what it was?
And now that we have plastic Heresy models from Games Workshop, I think that was part of the reason they shifted things over.
Yeah. Edge paints went. Some of the edge paints
all the edge
went
paints
to
moved
layers.
Into layers.
All of them moved into layers.
We did. Oh, I was furious about this one. Figured this out on Friday. Glazes went away.
Yeah, that was disappointing.
Yeah.
But I have plenty of glaze actually at home.
But I mean, eventually we'll run out. And like for me personally, when a color goes away, it means that any new projects I start aren't going to incorporate it.
Right.
Because
you don't use it.
Yeah, I can't get it again. So Games Workshop did kill off their glazes. It's only 4 colors, but it's funny. I just really started using them like a year and a half ago, and I was like, oh, glazes are amazing. These are great. And then they killed them, and I was like, of course they did. My only gripe about this entire rollout at this point is the air paints, and
but
it's nothing negative against the air paints. Let me start by saying that it's negative on how Games Workshop made the local game stores repurchase the entire airline in the new bigger bottles, and I think that was probably the majority of the cost.
That's at least half of it.
Yeah, of the cost. And as a store that was already a P300 store, whatever they called it, we upgraded to the new level. That was a big expense. And it's like, why couldn't you have just let us, as we sell out the old bottles, buy the new bigger bottles in?
Well, they're going to recoup, or we hope they are going to recoup for the bottles you had on the shelf. But that was part of I think, and that's where that price tag comes from. I mean, the other paint that we brought in was, was the contrast paint or the new colors. And again, I don't think that's killer. I'm still of the belief that might not justify a cool June release, but that's just my opinion.
We do have a cool July release coming.
We have a great July release, and we'll talk about that. But the air paint thing, I think that's where we get left sitting.
That's where the burn came
with the
from
money,
on this.
With the money situation. But
and I probably
if you're an air painter, it's probably exciting.
I was gonna say, if we had more locals here as a local game store, if we had more local people who did airbrush their models more, it wouldn't be as big an issue.
Yeah.
But the air paint has never been like a giant thing for us.
Yep.
So yeah. Maybe it comes from the fact that we live in the frozen north. And
well, I have an airbrush and I don't use it.
The air hurts your skin 9 months of the year here, so.
I should use it. But so contrast paints, a big plus. I think most of the colors, the new colors, another big plus.
Yep, haven't messed with a lot of the new colors outside of the granite steel and the yellow yet.
Well, I haven't because I didn't get them and we're sold out of them, so we're gonna
granite steel went
get
fast.
it renewed. But and a couple.
Granite
of
steel, if you haven't seen it, by the way, it's a really just gorgeous steel color that has a hint of blue in it.
It's really pretty.
Really neat.
Really cool.
I saw that and I was like, this might be the coolest color they put out. And then I saw the yellow and I'm like, oh.
Yeah, I really like that yellow.
But
So what's coming out next week?
Nothing.
Or nothing comes out next week. What comes out the week after?
It's
a big
release. Is huge.
Huge.
Warhammer community site's been blowing up. We've already seen pictures, so we'll start with the small stuff first. So the small stuff is we have a new tank coming out for Space Marines based on the Repulsor chassis. We have
less guns, more guns,
more
guns.
They didn't
less
have enough
carry capacity.
Yeah,
that's what it was. Yeah.
And then we have a transport finally for Adeptus Mechanicus.
Yep.
We have a battle tank for Adeptus Mechanicus, both on the same hover chassis. And then we have the return of the Baneblade kit coming back to retail stores in a new box and has all the variants in it. So that's really exciting too. I love the Baneblade. I don't actually have an Adeptus Mechanicus or Astra Militarum army at the moment, but it's always tempting, when you see that stuff come back out. And then that's I guess it's leading into it because the Baneblade heralded Apocalypse back in 5th or 6th edition. 5th edition when it dropped, and Apocalypse is coming back. Apocalypse is coming back, but in a completely reformatted game, basically. It's not even 40K. It is its own game. It's its own rule set. It's its own way to play the game. You use all your same models. So everything you already have for 40K, you get to use in Apocalypse.
And you need way more.
They're putting out movement trays. There's command decks of cards that you use. The models don't have the same stat lines. Like it's a completely different rule set. And they've been already previewed Space Marines and Chaos Space Marines on the community site as of today. The game looks really interesting. A little bit I've seen. I haven't seen the full layout. They're going to be revealing that later this week of what gameplay looks like. I was that guy that when Apocalypse came out, I went nuts. I was playing with a group in Detroit, Michigan at the time, in that area that their motto was "Where we bleed resin," because there were a bunch of guys who bought a bunch of stuff from Forge World. I bought my first Forge World model then, which was a Trigon, back when Trigons were super heavies for Tyranids. And I shortly thereafter, I picked up my first Hierophant Biotitan, Hieroduals, and it just went on from there. And these guys were playing with Forge World models before Apocalypse was a thing. And I got to play in giant games, and they made up their own rules, and it was a lot of fun. But seeing Games Workshop support that, and I loved Apocalypse. So I'm really, really excited about this release. We ran a game at my house one time. We called it 40K of 40K, 20,000 points per side. It was all my models. It was 20,000 points of Tyranids, 20,000 points of Space Marines. At the time, they were still called Imperial Guard, and Adeptus Mechanicus with a couple of Warhound Titans. It was 20,000 points of Imperials versus that. It's out there on YouTube somewhere still. 2-hour battle report is a 15-hour game. And that was crazy, right? 15-hour game, 8 players. And they're saying in the new Apocalypse, you can do what would be like the equivalent of like maybe a 5,000 to 7,000 point game in 40K now in an afternoon. So I'm curious. I'm really curious to see what they're bringing to us. I'm excited to see it. I love new games. And I love a new game where I already have models painted for it.
And you can buy more. I mean, I think that's what they're pushing. They have some specialty box sets coming out.
There are some crazy good deals coming out on some of those box sets.
Yeah, if you need to get into 40K, now would be a good time to jump in and get some stuff from your local game store. Yeah, I loved looking at Apocalypse tabletop when they were set up. 15 hours in a game never sat well with me, and I think that's so. If they're gonna find a way to shorten that, Apocalypse I think could be a huge hit.
Well, okay, so the 15-hour game we did was over 2 days, right? First of all,
sure,
let me just throw that out there, and we made it a party. We were barbecuing.
Sure. But that's. I used to play Risk, and you could take that long on a.
But I'm saying though,
game,
like that was an event. It wasn't like hey, let's do this again next week. That was like it took months of prep and planning, putting it all together, writing a special scenario for it. And I'm really hoping that Apocalypse takes a lot of that away, and so you can be, hey, this Saturday, let's play an Apocalypse game.
Yeah, and the rules change, so
we'll see.
I think we'll have to see what that brings. That's going to be, I think, a big release, and they have been light.
It might actually motivate me to finish. I've had on my desk for a year and a half now. October of 17, I started cleaning the resin for a Chaos Reaver, and I still don't have the whole thing built. I have like a few things left to build on it, but if this is good, it's probably going to motivate me to finish building the leg pistons and the power fist for it, and then paint it up. Painting up is not what holds me back. It's building the things. I don't like building resin models. But if Apocalypse is good, then I'm going to have to finish that Reaver so I can put a Reaver on the board. I already have a Chaos Warhound. I already have like 3 or 4 Chaos Knights.
Now you can play that stuff. So I think they did an interview with Duncan today. You can check that out at the Games Workshop TV. But he talked about his Imperial Knights and what he would add to it because Apocalypse is coming. And he actually mentioned it.
I'm waiting for Chaos Knights to come out in 40K too, so this is like my whole excuse to like build my Knights up.
Bringing a new thing for that. So, but nope, those are, I think, GW's releases, and we'll have more on Apocalypse when it comes out. We'll talk a little bit more about contrast paint, but we're about done with that. So you got our take on the contrast paints. General's Handbook comes out next week.
Yep.
We talked about that last week.
Product. Yeah, General's Handbook comes out this Saturday.
Excuse me, this Saturday. We ordered it last week. So.
And one thing we had talked about, and we got to retract and apologize to Games Workshop.
What happened?
The Sisters of Battle model.
Oh, yeah, we were able to get that in, the specialty model.
We are able to get it in.
So 2 thumbs up, sorry, Games Workshop. And we got the Sisters of Battle model. We're able to have some of them at the store, and so that was really good. So hopefully they continue to do that.
Yep.
I don't think it was because of our gripe video that they did that. I think it was they just did it.
I think we have that power.
Yeah.
We don't. But
I wish we could have that power. That'd be awesome. But we don't even get the paints early, so we're gonna start getting stuff early though. We need more of you to watch. That's if we had more viewers, then they would treat us with more respect. But Modern Horizons is still kicked off well, everybody, and they're reprinting it. It's not going away. It's not. They had said that in a couple of articles.
I mean, it'll eventually go away, but
they all do. But they do reprint it. It's not a one and done like with a lot of the Ultimate sets. So and they're sticking to that. We'll see Gideon's Spellbook towards the end of this month. And
then right at the beginning of next month.
Then it's
pre-release for M20,
July is the first one they're going to let us do, and you'll see this at your local game store, so check it out. Friday pre-releases.
So the 5th, 6th, and 7th.
So the 5th, 6th, and 7th, they're allowing local game stores now to do a pre-release event on Friday evening. They want it to start after 3 p.m. Interesting enough, they did specifically say that.
Interesting.
They have 5 Planeswalker decks coming.
Midnight. Okay,
yeah. So you can start at 3 p.m. and roll on Friday. And so we'll be doing that here, but check that out at your local game stores. Find out when they're playing theirs. We actually upped our allocation this time to get more players in and see how that works on that over 3 days versus the 2 days. So it might be a lot of fun. So check that out with your local game stores. They've done a few, what are those called? Spoilers or whatever, when you see the cards early. They've got a few out there. One of note is the Mythic Chandra. Okay. Well, I'll just leave it, and we won't bring it up. I should have a card to show you on the screen. But she has a +2 ability that gives an emblem to a player and deal 1 damage at the beginning of that player's upkeep. +2. No, you don't take away for that. You get an emblem from a +2. And by the way, at this time, we don't have a way to get rid of emblems. Broken, unless they're bringing something that we haven't seen yet to get rid of those emblems. But that's the one card. And
that's the dangerous spoilers, right? Is you get like a little snapshot.
Yeah, and maybe we're missing something.
So.
I can do it with a grain of salt. I'm not internet and gonna blow up, but if you look at it, it's really funny because you see the red players. That's the greatest card in the world, and then everybody else is like, dude, they just broke Magic again. And so I'm sure they'll bring something that will deal with that. But like a +2 ability that gives an emblem is just nuts to me. But because you're laying infinite damage on the board at that point, albeit maybe slowly. But in a red burn deck, 1 or 2 damage in the first couple of turns isn't too shabby. She's a 6 cost, so it's not the first couple of turns. But that was the big reveal. And then there's like 4 Chandras in the set.
Oh wow.
Yes, it's kind of weird.
Here's who does the art. I want to see who does the art.
Yeah, I know you're more into that than the cards themselves, but I don't have any idea.
I had a few favorite artists that I collect some cards from, and I try to see them at cons and get them signed and stuff just for my personal collection.
So they have like Shanda's kind of growth spurt through the life of her life, or whatever the storyline is in M20. I don't know if there is one in those, but so there's multiple Chandras. So I think you're going to soon be able to run a standard Chandra tribal deck. That'd be fantastic, I guess. So that is kind of the M20 news. Well, we might have some more spoilers and get the cards up on the screen as we go over the next couple of weeks. We got to kind of cut short too, so we're not going to do any personal segment tonight.
But we will.
What's coming this week?
So, well, this week we're talking about General's Handbook is coming. I'm pretty excited about that because I know there's a lot of changes. They've kind of previewed them already online. I am so torn. I've been thinking about changing. I know we're like almost a full month in. I've been thinking about changing my army in the General's Journey for Age of Sigmar because of these new contrast paints, and I really want to paint Seraphin and Stormcast. But we'll see. We'll see what the General's.
I changed. I'm painting Deepkin, and I'm sticking with it because I'm having a lot of fun. I actually put the eels. I primed the eels up in the Gray Seer today, and I'm gonna take that Aethermatic blue home. Or no, not Aethermatic blue. The
Talisar.
The green.
No, Achelian green.
Achelian green. That's actually more
actually
of a
blue.
and base the eels with that and see how that turns out. So we'll see how that comes.
Yeah, we'll see. Like I'm torn between I'm really liking painting skinks right now. They're so much fun to paint.
I'm having a lot of fun painting. I've painted more models in the last week than so. Again, I think on some level, it's going to get more people to paint more. But I already painted, not a ton, but I'm painting more. But I know that will die after the nuance wears off, and I'll paint less. But or maybe I won't. But I don't see it getting new painters to suddenly start painting again. But we'll see. We're waiting. We're taking a toll. We have one player in the shop that we're like, if he gets this guy. But in my defense, he has all the contrast paints and he hasn't painted anything yet. He told us that today.
Yep.
So again, we'll see. Maybe that comment though will spark him. It won't be the paints. It'll be the fact that we're trolling him here on the internet. So we got out of the box right after this in about 15 minutes. They are back after taking a week off and gonna scale into that Goblin Dungeon and something with the glass staff. So come check that out if you guys have been watching that. I think we just got a few more weeks before that wraps up. So tune in. The other videos are on YouTube, so you can catch up now too. So most of the other ones are there. So
as always, please follow us here. You're welcome to subscribe as well. We will be doing giveaways soon to subscribers, starting with the D&D starter box from Out of the Box.
Yep.
The group will sign it, and so that you can say, hey, I got these guys to sign it when they were still small and not super famous like they are.
And then when they are famous, they'll be worth $1 million. Wednesday, we got Dungeon Delvers. Thursday, we're back to Immersion RPG. Excited about that one.
Saturday, we got
Legacies of War. We got the finale. The finale.
Final battle of our little Age of Sigmar campaign. And then on Sunday?
Sunday is round 2 of Ready Table 1, standard again. Had a great... It was Father's Day on Sunday, and so I think some of our 2 younger guys that are playing in the
family obligations.
Had family obligations. Hopefully we'll see them next week, but we had a great turnout. Guys really loved it. It looks like you guys like it too, as we've got it up, and it's got a ton of views, so that's exciting to see. But check that out, and we're going to continue that. We'll actually do some interviews with the players, get their pictures up on the website after this week too. They got to come in and we make them wear shirts.
That is our schedule right now, though. We're streaming 5 days a week, so make sure you check those out. And like I said, you can find us on YouTube as well. Definitely subscribe there. It's free to subscribe on YouTube. We appreciate all the subscriptions there as well. Feel free to comment on any of our videos. Let us know what we can do better. We always want to improve.
Constructive criticism is always good.
Yep.
Subscribe, follow, Twitter, Snapchat, whatever else we got out there. It's all there. Check us out, get us the follows, and we'll make it better and get better as we go.
Yep.
All right, we will see you next week, 6 p.m. Hopefully, barring any technical issues. We'll be 6 p.m. next Tuesday for another episode of KNN.
Yep.
See you next week.